Hey everyone, welcome to the channel for another Escape from Tarkov video, going over the 12.5 patch that just dropped yesterday and looking ahead to some confirmed details about 12.6 and the upcoming wipe. There's been a lot of news surrounding Tarkov in the last week or so, and a lot of it is regarding some pretty major changes, additions, and new features coming to the game. This video will be covering the highlights from the patch notes and some of the more significant new changes confirmed for the 12.6 update. I'll also be going over the post-effects settings added to the game and give an overview of the settings I'm using to improve my overall visibility. To get this started, I'll take a look at the patch notes and the addition of in-game graphics filters. First and foremost, there's finally been some quality of life fixes around optics, and most importantly regarding aim sensitivity and optimization when using magnified scopes. For as long as I can remember, using magnified scopes had a pretty big hit on your performance, and it was at its worst when running multiple sights, which was especially unfortunate because of the game's focus on intense weapon customization. The worst offender in my opinion was the momentary freeze you would sometimes get when switching scopes in a hectic fight, which could really throw off your aim. In the 12.5 patch, I won't say it's been completely eliminated, but I've definitely noticed a smoother overall experience when playing with magnified scopes and multiple sights. It's smoother when aiming, and I experienced almost no stutters while scoping in. Altogether, very well done on the fix. Another issue with some scopes was the sensitivity change when switching zoom levels on the 1:4 and 1:6 scopes. The one-time sensitivity was really stiff, and it led a lot of people to just not use them at all, because a backup reflex was much better for CQB. This got tweaked in the 12.5 patch, and now scopes like the Elcan, Valde, and Voodoo feel a lot more responsive on the one-time setting. This is great news for me because the Voodoo is among my favorite scopes. So you spend 250k on an armor, you never block any shots. The second big change in the 12.5 patch is a new trader feature from Therapist that lets you heal up any injuries after you leave a raid for a pretty modest cost. This by itself is a pretty cool feature, and it's a great idea with the post-raid healing. Now you won't need to hoard grizzly medkits to heal after every raid, and it makes the process much faster. The cost is fairly low, which is great in my opinion, especially for new players and low level players. It was only about 4,500 rubles to heal fully including fractures, which is much cheaper than blowing a whole Salawa, IFAK, or part of a grizzly medkit. About the only thing I could critique with this is that they should add the feature to the pre-raid screen as well, so you can let your character heal while you load out and then use the services as you queue into the next raid. This therapist service also added another much requested feature into the game, a more detailed KIA report, which shows more info about how you died, letting you see a detailed breakdown of where you got shot, what weapon you got shot by, and other info. This should be pretty helpful for everyone, since it can give you some more context as to what exactly got you, and whether your armor actually did anything to help you. For new players, this should help give them some hints as to what the better weapon choices are, and for veterans, it should help ease a bit of the WTF response when we get killed, since we can see what led to our eventual death. Overall, both of these features are just welcome additions, and it's hard to see anything negative about them. The final big change added in the 12.5 patch is the post-FX panel in the main menu, which allows you to add and adjust some graphics filters for better visibility and personal preference in terms of how much color and brightness you want in your game. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding out-of-game filters and whether it's an unfair advantage, so I think it was smart of BSG to move them in-game, giving them control over what filters they want to allow players to use. Personally, I think it's a nice feature, especially considering there was almost no way to adjust brightness and contrast in-game before this, and that was a problem for some people. Even my monitor struggled sometimes to find a good balance of brightness without washing out the picture. The settings we got are pretty simple, a collection of contrast, brightness, and clarity options with a bunch of color filters as well. It's not too complex to mess around with, and you can hit the visualize button to be able to see a live action view of what your changes are doing, which is a big help. For my personal settings on the post-FX panel, my main goal was to brighten up the shadows a little bit, because on my monitor it's sometimes tough to see without an in-game light source. I was also trying to cut down on a bit of pixelation at distance and brighten up the colors. I also tried to mess around with the settings and make the light from my flashlights a bit easier to see through and cut down the glare from the light hitting surfaces closer to me. I use the flashlight a lot in this game, and I think I actually did manage to cut down the glare and make it a bit more useful. I've got the brightness at 10 and saturation at 15, just high enough to up the overall lighting and color without washing out the image. For the clarity slider, this will depend on your monitor and your own preferences. It sharpens the outlines on things, but also adds some grain to the overall image. I have it around 40 to make things have a better outline at distance. Colorfulness is a pretty obvious one, just another setting for the depth and brightness of colors. I don't want it to look cartoony, but I do like strong colors, so I have it set to 50. The last two settings here are two separate sharpening sliders. From what I can tell, Luma Sharpen adjusts the brightest areas on your screen, but adaptive sharpening seems to be general sharpness of the image. I have Luma Sharpen set to 20 and Adaptive Sharpen cranked all the way up to 100. I don't have trouble seeing the bright spots, and Adaptive Sharpening seemed to make shadows more clear, so I prioritized that one. The color grading option lets you add color filters to your image, which can let you counteract bad color settings on your monitor or just stylize your image. Some of them are really weird, and some of them do almost nothing. I haven't tried too many, but I settled on the Stefano filter. I found this one just brightened up the color a little bit and made the shadows a bit less dark without adding a monochrome filter over the screen or deep frying the image. There's also a few filters and colorblind settings for people that need it, and I know it's a pretty requested change, so I'm glad that they finally added this. That's about it for the major changes in the 12.5 patch, but there was also a lot of bug fixes and optimizations which seem to have improved the performance a bit, as I was noticing higher frames while I was playing. A main menu and hideout button were also added to the bottom bar of the screen in the menu, so now you can get anywhere with one click. One other thing worth mentioning is that you can no longer cheese the system and pack mags while healing anymore. It was fun while it lasted, but I can totally understand why they would change it from a realism standpoint, so I don't have too much to say about it. Moving on from 12.5, now we're looking at 12.6 and the upcoming wipe, which was confirmed during the latest podcast. From the sounds of things, they're pretty well prepared for 12.6, saying that they're mostly doing final testing and getting it ready to roll out. They don't want to confirm a date yet, which is smart, but they've given their trademark soon timeline, so I would imagine within a month or two at most, we're looking at a wipe. The wipe will reset everything, except for your weapon presets and examined items, which is great and will save some time and trouble in the next patch. The devs also said they plan to do more pre-wipe events for a few days before the patch, so when those hit, we'll know it's all real. Even after being moved up to level 10, the flea market is taking another hit in the 12.6 patch, being limited to only items that are found in raid. This means no more buying items from the traders and reselling them in your budget M4 shop, and no more relisting all of Peacekeeper's M855A1 at absurd prices. This is probably the biggest change to the economy the game has seen besides the hideout, and it's going to almost completely change the landscape of the mid-game before level 40. My first reaction to this is that weapon builds are going to become a different beast altogether, especially in the mid-game. People are going to need to learn how to build weapons using trader-only parts instead of buying the meta pieces as soon as they hit level 10, and I imagine we'll see a lot more variety in builds. However, I do worry that this might radically inflate the price of some weapon attachments, and more importantly, ammo, which has already risen to absurd heights. The loot pool is full of attachments like the PBS4, LCAN, and many others that are very useful, and that drives the market price down for those items, making it possible for mid-game players to access some pretty useful attachments. However, I hope they add a lot more trader items to the loot pools so that less items are locked purely behind a level requirement and can actually be scavenged and resold. For a lot of things, I don't see much changing, like with barter items and hideout loot which is found in raid anyways. Hopefully, the only people who are really negatively impacted by this are the market bots, real money traders, and price gougers who just abuse the market system. Getting a run through or disconnect on your raid also eliminates the found in raid tag, so hatchet runners won't be able to sell the LEDX on the market anymore after they run out of the room and kill themselves. We won't really know until we get our hands on it though, but I'm sure I'm going to miss the millions that I used to make early wipe off of M4 stocks and AK handguards. The first implementation of the new audio system is planned for 12.6, which should help a lot with the directional sound and being able to hear through walls and through floors. Nikita said in the podcast it was all working well and will continue to be updated after the first implementation in 12.6. Also in 12.6, one confirmed weapon is the Colt 1911 pistol in 45 caliber, the first weapon of its type in Escape from Tarkov. It's an iconic pistol and people have been begging for it for a long time, so hopefully it lives up to the hype. The devs also talked about the Vector and UMP, as well as the USP pistol in 45 caliber, all planned for 12.7 or later, so we'll probably be waiting a while on those. According to the podcast, basically the whole level design team is working on Streets of Tarkov right now, and the map is supposedly massive, both vertically and in terms of flat space. 40 players are planned for the map, and it's supposed to be the main location of the game where most of the important stuff happens. We've seen plenty of screenshots for the location, and it really does seem like an insanely detailed and densely packed map. We won't be getting this until 0.13 though, at the very least, so it's a long way out. The devs also briefly discussed the upcoming shoreline boss called Sanitar during the stream. This boss is basically going to be a crazy Russian doctor and be based around using stimulants. Some were mentioned, like one that lets you carry lots of weight and one which gives you hallucinations, so this one should have some interesting mechanics. Most of the other stuff in the dev stream is speculation for the future, teasing new weapons like the PPSH and talking about reporting features and anti-cheat. It's not really concrete info, so I don't really want to get into it it too much. One thing we will see in 12.6 though is some kind of nerf to the VSS and AS Val, though it wasn't specified what that could be yet. Hopefully they can find a nice middle ground so they can still be feared weapons, but not be so dominant at close range. I'm sure I may have missed something, but I'll be doing a more in-depth look at 12.6 and the future wipe as soon as we have concrete info and patch notes. Well, that about covers it for the video. I hope you found what you're looking for and enjoyed this look into some new and upcoming features in Tarkov. I'm really glad they're doing some more quality of life tweaks lately, and I hope they keep it up in the future. I'll be streaming more Escape from Tarkov on Twitch, and it'd be great to have you drop by the stream, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. There's also links to my Twitter and Discord down below, which I use to send out notifications when I'm going live. Finally, there's a link to my Patreon page as well, and if you want to be an absolute legend and support the channel, consider checking that out. It lets me commit more time to the channel and keep the content flowing. Thanks for checking out the video. As always, feel free to leave any comments, corrections, or suggestions down below, and until next time, stay safe in Tarkov City. Oh, I got him. All right.